people with vaginas, as they're medically called. White House, they call it the Texas bill protecting girls' sports, hateful bullying disguised as legislation. These anti-transgender bills are nothing more than bullying disguised as legislation, trying to undermine our nation's core values. That's what a spokesperson from the White House, let's go Brandon, that's what they said. So on Tuesday, the White House condemned a newly passed law in Texas that requires school sports to be separated by biological gender, and the law is hateful and bullying. You're bullying these transgender women by not letting them beat the shit out of natural born women. You bigot. What's wrong with you? Why don't you? Because now they got female wrestling teams. That's like a bigger thing now. Why don't you let the transgender women wrestle the regular natural born women or female signed born? Because they're all women. You bigots. You Texas bigots. You are denying their existence. Don't you know? Because you should be you should be open-minded enough and progressive enough to let your daughters get their confidence smashed in female athletics. You should stop being such a bigot and make sure that no female assigned at birth will ever win another athletic competition in school sports. All the however many thousands of women or millions of women there was it 300 million people plus. So what, 150, 100, because actually more women than men. 150 million women. You guys are being bigoted for wanting to be more valid than a percentage? Maybe 1 million transgender. Let's go 2 to 5 million transgender. You guys are being bigoted towards them. Stop your oppressive ways. All right, enough of my sarcasm. The law, which was signed by both the House and Senate on Monday, is expected to be signed by Governor Greg Abbott, who condemned the lawmakers for having to finally pass legislation to protect the integrity of Texas high school sports. And we do know high school sports are pretty big in Texas. White House blasted the bill, saying this is hateful. This hateful bill in Texas, just the latest example of those Republican state lawmakers. I'm sorry, I can't help it. The Republican state lawmakers using legislation to target transgender kids who the president believes they're some of the bravest Americans. And I don't want to get into that. I don't want to shit on them anymore. But in order to score, they're trying to score political points. They're trying to score political points by not having your daughter slammed on her head in wrestling, not having your daughter dunked on in basketball. They're trying to have political points. This administration will keep fighting for the full measure of equality, dignity, and respect for all LGBTQIA+. They didn't have the A. These bigots, where's the A? It's LGBTQIA+. White House do better. But we'll give them the respect all those Americans deserve. This diverse chap said, because I'm not going to try with that name. The White House will be engaging stakeholders in Texas and other states in the coming weeks to build a path toward true equality. Because we're not equal unless we can beat the shit out of your daughters in sports. That's the equality we need. And I always also wonder, because females who transition into men, they can use testosterone, right? I don't know. I'm not a medical expert. I know a little bit about steroids. Is it possible for a woman to steroid herself up to a young man's standard? I'm not sure. You know what I mean? Because these are teenagers. Is that possible? Anyone in the chat, let me know. A question about whether the Biden administration will challenge the law in Texas. A press secretary, I saw somebody call it the bride of Chucky, Jen Psaki, deferred the question to the Justice Department, but stated the president's view is transgender rights are human rights, rather adults or kids. But it's not. This is the fact that this is like what is it called? Gaslighting. It's such a gaslight to to act as if there's no like there's a reason people want this. There are kids who can, there are girl athletes who can, they will never be able to beat transgender athletes. Why can't we have a transgender a transgender section of sports, of school sports? Maybe the reason is because the population isn't enough, which also begs the question, not that you just throw away somebody's thoughts and concerns just because they're a minority, but why are we even going through all this hoopla for this? Honestly, all jokes aside, a lot of this stuff is pushed out and beaten down your head for division's sake. That's the real answer. For the sake of divisiveness, for the sake of getting people to argue. Yesterday we showed the Dave Chappelle protest and the guy who went down there. But most of those protesters aren't themselves trans. They're just allies, and it's about, somebody said something about political clout or a similar term. That's what it really is about for a lot of people being on the right side of history. I just want logic. I don't think it's discriminatory to be logical. There's weight classes and things, right? Why do you, to say it's discriminatory to have women compete, or biological women, female assigned at birth, whatever term you want to use, to say it's discriminatory to have them compete with other females assigned at birth, other women. I'm trying, look at me. I'm trying to say all the terms. I'm trying to be all progressive and shit. But to have these people compete with each other, to say that that's discriminatory is similar to saying people who compete in weight classes, which again, I'm using the sport of wrestling. That sport has weight classes. There's a reason somebody who's 150 pounds in high school wrestling can't compete with somebody who's 200 pounds in high school wrestling, because there's a weight difference and there's a physical difference between the individuals, right? That's established based upon their weight. Well, it's also true to their gender. There's going to be a physical difference. We're not classifying these people in order to discriminate. We're classifying these people in order to keep people competing with similar, keep the playing field equal. That's what I'm trying to say. Keep the playing field equal. So if we're just trying to keep the playing field equal, it's the same reason they have even divisions in high school sports. The high-end prep school is not going to, I mean, sometimes they play them, the Bishop Sycamore situation, but a high-end prep school, especially Texas sports, the high-end prep school that's sending kids to the NCAA and the NFL, they're not going to play the bumfuck small, 100 student school in sports. They're going to play a similar high-end school as far as sports. You'll match them up as far as divisions in a state for school athletics, right? You don't just have everybody play everybody. One, it's not logistically possible, but two, and sometimes you do it by geography, but even within that geography, you'll usually class it up, at least, where there's a higher grade of schools and lower grades of schools. So it's not, this is just classifying to keep the playing field equal. It's not discrimination. No one's doing this because we're looking to just look at transgenders and bully them and say, oh, you're not this. No one's doing that. We're just, that's what the gaslight is. The gaslight is, in order for you to just care about yourself, you're being a bigot. That's what they're trying to convince people. That's what they're trying to normalize, and they've done it to some extent. They've normalized, you're a bigot because you're interested in logic. It's like, no, I'm not interested in denying anyone's existence. I don't want my existence denied, All right. Sorry about my rant. I guess my rant is the whole show is a rant. So once the bill is signed into law, Cook potentially clashed with a statement given from the Department of Education in June, ruling that Title IX protects students from discrimination based upon sexual orientation and gender identity. Again, this is not discrimination. This is keeping the playing field safe, or keeping the playing field even. While advocating on the bill, advocates of the bill have assisted the transgender athletes by competing against girls, put female athletes at a disadvantage. LGBTQ advocates will likely challenge the bill. Is there a challenge to that statement? Is there a I haven't heard a LGBTQ activist who probably isn't LGBTQ, because we know how these allies are. I haven't heard someone refute the fact that a transgender male to female is going to have a huge advantage at sports. No one has refuted that. No one has said that. And then you guys want to complain when people don't watch the WNBA, when people don't watch women's sports, but you're killing it. You're literally destroying the ability for women's sports to exist. This is just a mess, man. This is just a mess. Earlier this year, the Human Rights Campaign filed a lawsuit against Florida, similar law, and they were filing similar lawsuits against Arkansas, Mississippi, and Tennessee. Driftwood Representative Aaron Zweller, founding member of the Secretary of the House LGBTQ caucus, called the ban a mean-spirited attack on vulnerable children that turns them into casualties in the culture war. Well, your response is also causing this law is also a mean-spirited attack on vulnerable children, because all the women who want to compete in an even playing field, they can't because of your thoughts on the culture war. So, I mean, was it pot, meat, kettle on that statement? So there are no documented incidents in Texas of a transgender taking an athletic opportunity from a cisgender girl, but the damage done to the mental health of the transgender students is well documented. I've seen incidents all over the country. I don't know if that there is or isn't in Texas, but I mean, I've seen incidents. I've seen that. That's not the case, at least countrywide. There are, however, examples in other states, such as Connecticut and Ohio, where a biological male who identifies as transgender was recently named Sportswoman of the Year in New Zealand. Cece Telfer, who competes on women's teams and is a gender non-conforming biological male, has also taken spots away from women athletes. The trans sports ban is a harmful solution to a non-existent problem. All right. Even proponents of the bill cannot give real-life examples of the what? Oh, we just read a couple. What the fuck? This is the gaslight. This is what I mean. Wesley Story, communication director at Progress Texas, says that Abbott is stigmatizing a group of kids for being different for a few far-right votes in Republican primaries. Of course, we're far-right for wanting our women not to get their head caved in. Maybe we should send this Wesley Story, who says there's no real-life examples, that one MMA fight. We should send, hey, is this a real-life example? Is this a real-life example? Who do you care more about? The woman that's getting her head beaved in, or the transgender man so he can feel good? Which one? You got to pick one. Pick one. Okay, I think that's it. That's it. I don't know what to say about this. This is, nobody is trying to, and I gotta say, I'm saying this as genuine as possible, man. As genuine as possible. The narrative is anything that is remotely anti-trans is just the worst thing on earth. And as I kind of pointed out a second ago, like a lot of things you're saying about what's happening to the transgender students is what this law has the potential to do, or the repeal of this law, because the law is obviously to keep it, I hate to use the term segregated, but that's what it is. It's segregated by gender. But you're if you get what you want, you'll be hurting all the cisgendered or potential pregnant people, because those are also terms for women. But no, you will be hurting all the young ladies who are trying to get into athletics, and there are examples. I'm not sure if there are examples in Texas, because they haven't had that, maybe they've kept it from happening. I don't know that. Maybe they've kept just informally kept it from happening. But there are examples of, transgender women competing in MMA. They gave an example of a person in New Zealand won Sportswoman of the Year, who themselves is transgender. It's like, yeah, they do take, they will take spots away from cisgendered women, and I'm not trying to offend a transgender individual. I'm not looking to shit on LGBTQ people for bigotry purposes. No one's trying to do that. No, this is not why somebody wants school sports for biological women to play biological women and biological men to play against biological men. Nobody's doing that to hate, to find transgender to hate. They only don't want young women to be in a extreme disadvantage. That's it. It's like, what are we talking about here? Like, how is this even a debate? How we're arguing with a gaslit argument? Like, how? Like, if you're a transgender athlete, if you're somebody who genuinely believes yourself to be a woman despite being biologically male, why would you want to compete against people that you know you have a genetic advantage against? Well, then again, I mean, people do steroids, so I guess that's the answer to that argument. But wouldn't you at least, like, I don't know, man. I'm trying to be logical. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to why you have to be called a bigot just for wanting something that seems to be common sense and basic logic. Why am I denying it? How is wanting to compete against like individuals? How is wanting an even playing field in competition? How is that bigotry? How is that bigotry? Please explain it. Like, what is your argument? And what do you have to say to the woman who loses a spot on a racing team or goes down a ranking on whatever, cross country, track, whatever it is that she's competing with individuals who were physically male? Like, what do you say to that student? You're an LGBTQ activist. You get what you want. Transgenders can do whatever they want. So what do you say then to the girls who do lose out those spots? Like, what is your answer to them? What's your response to them? And I doubt that there is one. I doubt that there is one.